So, you've made it this far, and now you have questions about intervals. What is an interval? An interval is the distance between two notes, and intervals make up almost every aspect of music we have. Harmonies are made out of intervals, melodies are made out of intervals. No matter what piece of music you're listening to, written by whoever, doesn't matter what genre the music is in, it doesn't matter what style the music is written in, and it doesn't matter what country the music came from. If you look at it and are listening to it, it has intervals. Melodies are constructed out of intervals. Let's take the Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. This is a melody constructed entirely out of major and minor seconds. Beethoven wrote it that way because it's easy to sing. Let's look at the motive from his Fifth Symphony. This is constructed out of two thirds, a major third and then a minor third. The minor third gives it a much more frightening quality. And then lastly, we can look at the piccolo melody from the middle of Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony. In this melody, the primary interval is a perfect fourth. So, melodies are made out of intervals. Now, there are two types of intervals you need to know for your exam. There are harmonic intervals and there are melodic intervals. A harmonic interval is usually the one you're going to be looking at on the page. It's two notes played at the exact same time. And a melodic interval is when the notes are played one at a time. Alright, so usually the question on your exam will be asking you how to write intervallic labels. Let's talk about that now. An intervallic label has two parts to it. It has a distance and it has a quality. Okay? The distance is the easy thing to find, and the quality is a little bit more challenging. So let's start with distance. Distance simply represents the space between the two notes you are looking at. Let's do that on the piano now. So if I play a C major scale, C is the tonic. The second note of a C major scale is D. That's a second. The third note of a C major scale is E. That's a third. The fourth note of a C major scale is F. That's a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And for today's class, we are not going to be looking at any intervals bigger than an eighth. That's the distance. That's easy. Now the quality is a little bit more tricky to find. There are three qualities you need to know for this class: major, minor, and perfect. Let's start with major. If you take a major scale, the naturally occurring major intervals are seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. So, if you play any major scale, the second and third note and the sixth and seventh note will be major intervals. Let's look at that now. Let's do an F major scale. F is the tonic. So, the second and third note are major intervals, and the sixth and seventh are major intervals. So the second note of an F major scale is G. That's a major second. The third note of an F major scale is A. That's a major third. And the sixth note of an F major scale is D. That's a major sixth. And the seventh note of an F major scale is E. And that's a major seventh. Now, so what did we just say? Major, seconds and thirds are major, and sixths and sevenths are major. Now we just skipped over scale degree 4, 5, and 8. Those are perfect intervals in a major scale. Let's look at those now. Go back to F major. F is the tonic and the lowest note. The fourth note of an F major scale is B flat. This is called a perfect fourth, not a major fourth, it's a perfect fourth. The fifth note of an F major scale is C. That's a perfect fifth. And then the eighth note of an F major scale is, of course, F, the tonic again. And that is a perfect eighth. Now, some of you are probably wondering why we didn't just call all the intervals majors, since they all come from a major scale. And the reason is because in later theory grades you're going to be inverting intervals and flipping them upside down, and when you flip perfect intervals upside down, they stay perfect, unlike the other intervals. So you really don't need to know that for today. Just remember that seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths are the major intervals, and fourths, fifths, and eighths are the perfect intervals. Good. So we looked at distance and we looked at quality. Now, last thing we have to do is look at minor intervals. Minor intervals are obtained by shrinking major intervals by one semitone. Okay? You can do that either by lowering the top note by one semitone or by raising the bottom note by one semitone when you're working with a major interval. So you can take a major, second, third, sixth, or seventh, and you can turn them into a minor second, a minor third, a minor sixth, or minor seventh by lowering it, by shrinking it by one. Let's do that now. Let's take major thirds and reduce the distance between the two notes and get minor intervals. Let's start by lowering a top note of a major third. Here's a D. The third note of a D major scale is F sharp. This is a major third right now. Now, if I want to make it a minor third, I need to put these two notes closer together. Let's take this note and lower it by one semitone. So instead of it playing an F sharp, I will play an F natural. Now it's a minor third because it's one semitone smaller than the major third. This was the major third, D to F sharp. One smaller. Now it's a minor third. Very sad. Let's do another minor third, let's take another major third and make it into a minor third, but this time we'll raise the bottom note, and I'll show you how to do that. Let's go to the key of A flat major. Here's A flat, that's the tonic. The third note of an A flat major scale is C. Now if we shrink this by one semitone, let's raise this bottom note. So instead of playing A flat, we'll play A natural, and the notes got closer together. Major third, and now it's a minor third. We'll do one more. Let's take a major sixth, lower the top note by one semitone, and then make it a minor sixth. Let's stay on A. A is the tonic, A is the lowest note. The sixth note of an A major scale is F sharp. Now if we lower this F sharp by one semitone, we get an F natural. And now it is a minor sixth. And that's all there is you need to know to figure out intervals for this course. Now, the only reason this might be a struggle is if you have yet to memorize your key signatures, because in order to find out the quality, you need to know your key signatures. So if you still haven't memorized your key signatures, which I'm not sure how that's possible because I keep reminding you to, you need to pause this video, go sit on the edge of your bed, and hang your head in shame. And ask yourself how you could have made it this far without memorizing your key signatures. Then you can find a music theory textbook and relearn your key signatures. Then you can come back to your computer and unpause my video. And then in a minute you can join me at the whiteboard and we can do the homework together. Before we do that, let's just review the steps to labeling an interval. So, in order to label an interval, step one is to first figure out the distance between the two notes, and you do that by starting at the bottom note and counting up to the top note. The bottom note counts as number 1. 1 is the bottom note, 2, 3, 4, 5 until you land at the top note. Step 2 is to figure out the quality of the interval you're looking at, and you do this by asking yourself, what's the key signature of the bottom note? And you figure that out. Then you look at the top note and ask, is this top note in the bottom note's key signature? And if it is, that's good. That means you're working with a perfect or a major interval. And if it's not, you have to figure out, is it smaller or bigger than it should be if it was in the major scale, and then adjust the quality accordingly. Now, sometimes you won't know the key signature of the bottom note. Now, this is in an emergency situation. If you have a bottom note with sharps or flats and you've decided, or you can't figure out what the bottom note's key signature is, or maybe it doesn't even exist, and you're panicking, always you can take your hand and cover the accidentals with your hand so you can't see them anymore. And worst case scenario, you can just calculate the interval you're looking at in C major. Okay? So if you're intimidated by a bunch of sharps and flats, cover them with your hand and figure out the interval in C major. Then once you've done that, you can take your hand away and reinsert the sharps and flats and accidentals one by one and figure out if they make the interval bigger or smaller, and then adjust the label accordingly. Okay, so that's all you need to know for intervals. Now let's go over to the whiteboard together and we will practice everything we just learned.